This happened about 3 years ago. I was 32 and needed a break from the city. I liked camping to clear my head, so I picked a quiet spot in the Pacific Northwest. The trees were tall and a river flowed nearby. It felt calm and peaceful. I set up my tent that first night. It got dark and I built a fire. I fell asleep quickly, but the second night was different. Around midnight, I woke up to soft rustling outside. It was probably a raccoon, or maybe a deer, I thought. I tried to ignore it. Then I heard giggling. It sounded like a child. My heart raced. Was it my imagination? On the third day, I went hiking deeper into the woods. At first, everything felt normal. The trees were majestic and the path was clear. But then I saw something move in the corner of my eye. A shadow zipped past. I figured it was just an animal. But the laughter came again, louder this time, bouncing off the trees. I felt uneasy and wanted to find out where it came from. I followed the sound, but it faded away. I called out, but silence answered. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest. That night, I sat by the fire trying to calm down. I told myself it was probably just wildlife. When I crawled into my sleeping bag, sleep didn't come. At 2 a.m., I heard the giggling again. It was right outside my tent. I froze. I couldn't move. I was too scared to look outside. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks. I tried to sleep, but my nerves wouldn't settle. The next evening, as I packed up my gear, I found something strange on the ground. Just a few steps from my tent, I saw a circle of old toys. There was a rusted toy car, a faded doll, and a broken action figure. They were arranged in a perfect circle. I had no idea how they got there. I hadn't seen them before. Panic gripped me. What did it mean? I glanced around, expecting someone, but I was alone. As I quickly packed my things, I felt like eyes were on me. I couldn't shake the feeling. The woods were still now, but that laughter echoed in my head. I rushed to my car, heart racing again. I was eager to leave that place. As I drove away, I thought I saw something moving in the trees. A figure stood there, watching me. But when I blinked, it was gone. I didn't understand what had happened during those days. I still think about it. Was it my mind playing tricks, or was something in those woods waiting? I will never know, but I'm sure I will never go camping there again. I returned to my normal life after that camping trip, but the memories haunted me. I couldn't shake the feeling that those woods were holding on to something. A sense of dread settled in the pit of my stomach every time I thought about it. At night, I'd hear laughter in my dreams, the echo ringing in my ears. It felt real, like a reminder that I hadn't escaped completely. A few weeks later, I stopped by a local cafe. I found myself speaking to an old man who sat at the corner table, his weathered face hidden behind thick glasses. Something about him compelled me to share my story. I waited for the right moment and finally told him about my experience in the woods. To my surprise, his eyes darkened. "You shouldn't have gone there," he said. "Those woods are different. They carry stories, and not all of them are good." I pressed him for more information. He leaned in closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. Once, decades ago, a group of children went missing. They were last seen playing near a river in those woods. They never found them. His words sent chills down my spine. "But they say if you listen closely, you can still hear them laughing," he continued. "And sometimes you'll find things left behind. Toys, mostly." I felt my skin crawl. "But I didn't know that," I whispered. "I heard their laughter. I saw things." He shook his head. "It's a warning," he said. "You must be careful." I left the cafe feeling unsteady. Those toys were more than just junk. They were a connection to something unsettling. I drove home in a daze, heart racing. When I got there, I slammed the door shut as if it would shield me from whatever I had awakened during that trip. Days turned into weeks, but the memory was a weight I carried. One night, unable to sleep, I decided to do some research. I flipped through old newspaper articles and online posts. Most of them mentioned the missing children. Some even hinted at sightings of figures flitting between the trees. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. Someone had posted about a camping group trying to find those children. They reported strange happenings, things like hearing giggles echoing in the darkness and shadows moving behind them. It felt like I had stumbled into a dark history, and somehow I was part of it. That night, sleep didn't come easy. I kept replaying everything, the shadow, the laughter, the toys. I felt drawn back to the woods, like a moth to a flame. But as I closed my eyes, the giggling returned. This time, it felt closer, more insistent. The next morning, I found a small, dusty box on my porch. I hadn't ordered anything. When I opened it, I gasped. Inside, there were old photographs of children. They were standing by the river, laughing. I recognized a few of the toys from the circle. Were they trying to reach out to me? Just then, I heard a faint giggle coming from the woods beyond my backyard. It sent a jolt of fear through me. I rushed outside, heart pounding. That's when I saw it. A small figure darting between the trees, giggling. I couldn't just stand there. I had to understand what was happening. But as I stepped forward, the figure vanished into the shadows. My decision was made. I had to return to those woods. I had to face whatever was there, even if it terrified me. What would I find waiting for me? I wasn't sure if I was ready for the answer. The following day, I prepared for my return to the woods. I gathered supplies, a flashlight, water, and a small notebook. Maybe I could document everything I found. I hoped the notebook would somehow anchor me to reality, or at least remind me why I was there. I drove to the edge of the woods, feeling a tension in the air. The sun shone brightly overhead, but the trees loomed like silent sentinels. My heart raced as I walked along the familiar path. Every snap of a twig sent shivers down my spine. I was hyper-aware, every sense heightened. As I entered deeper into the woods, the sounds of nature faded to a hushed whisper. I felt the weight of the silence pressing in on me. It felt unnatural. I took a deep breath to calm myself, refocusing on the reason I returned. I had to find out the truth. I reached the clearing where we had camped. It looked different somehow. The ground where we had set up our tents felt unnaturally still. A faint breeze tugged at the branches, yet I felt no comfort in the air. I resisted the urge to turn back. Instead, I crouched down, searching for signs of those lost toys. That's when I found it, a dull glint beneath the leaves. I dug with my hands and pulled out a small metal car. It was rusted, but there was something eerily familiar about it. I remembered that car vividly. I held it in my palm, a chill creeping over me. Hadn't I seen this before in the photographs? As I stood there, the laughter bubbled up again, clear and joyous. It was so real, it almost felt like they were just behind the trees. My heart hammered in my chest. I wanted to turn and run, but that curious pull kept me rooted to the spot. Suddenly, another sound cut through the laughter, a soft weeping. I turned sharply, scanning the area. The laughter faded, replaced by that heart-wrenching cry. It was coming from a cluster of trees. I hesitated, my instinct screaming at me to leave, but I felt compelled to investigate. I walked toward the sound. Each step was a battle against my body's urge to retreat.
The trees parted as I approached, revealing a small clearing. In the center stood a small girl. Her back was to me, her curly hair painted with sunlight.
"Are you lost?" I called out, my voice trembling. She didn't respond, just continued to sway gently, as if wrapped in her own world. My heart raced. What was happening? I stepped closer, and that's when she turned. Her bright eyes locked onto mine, and in an instant the atmosphere shifted. The laughter returned with a fury, echoing all around me, and I felt a rush of cold air. "Help us!" she cried, her voice sharp and pleading. Then everything went dark. The laughter turned into screams. I stumbled back as the trees closed in, shadows stretching around me like grasping hands. I had to escape. I turned to run, but the woods seemed transformed, twisting and shifting, making my path unclear. I felt their presence, and I was terrified. What did the girl mean? Who were they? As I bolted deeper into the woods, I realized I was more lost than ever. I was running from something far worse than I had imagined, and I had no idea if I could ever get away. I stumbled through the underbrush, trying to push past my fear. My lungs burned with each frantic breath, and the chill of the darkness surrounded me. The laughter still echoed in my mind, twisting into something sinister, and I wondered who the girl was and what she needed help with. Branches snagged at my clothes, and I barely noticed them. All I could think of was getting away from that clearing, away from the little girl with her tragic eyes. I didn't dare look back, but I could feel the shadows lurking just behind me, as if they were waiting to close in. Then I tripped over a root, falling hard to the ground. Pain shot through my knee, but I forced myself to get up, my heart racing again. I had to keep moving. I tried to think. The path I had walked to get here had felt familiar, but now everything appeared foreign. Each step seemed to lead me further into a maze of trees that gripped at my mind like the roots beneath my feet. I paused, leaning against a tree to catch my breath. The dark bark felt rough against my palms. I pulled out my flashlight, and the beam of light cut through the gloom. It landed on something ahead. My heart pounded as I squinted to see what it was. That's when I saw it, a crumpled figure lying beneath a bush. It looked small, like a child, and a pulse of dread washed over me. I had to approach it. What if it was another victim? I stepped closer, the flashlight revealing more details. It was indeed a child, a boy with tousled hair, his face dirty and streaked with tears. He looked at me with wide eyes, and my breath hitched. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice shaky. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he turned his head slightly, pointing deep into the woods. "They're coming," he whispered. His panic gripped me again. "Who's coming?" I pressed. "The spirits," he said, his gaze darting frantically around us. "The ones who want us." The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Spirits? My thoughts raced back to the laughter, the girl, and the screams. I felt exposed, vulnerable. "We need to get out of here," I said, trying to sound brave. The boy nodded, but when I reached for him to help him up, he flinched away. "No, you can't touch me." I froze, uncertainty flooding in. "Why?" "They'll take you too," he cried, backing away from me. I staggered back in horror, a knot forming in my stomach. The truth began to settle uneasily in my soul. I was in the midst of something much darker than I had anticipated. I had to get away. As I turned to bolt into the woods again, a sudden stillness descended. I could feel it. Something was here with us, lurking in the shadows, waiting. My instincts screamed at me to run. I took off once more, but now with the boy's fearful whisper echoing in my mind. "They're coming."
I ran deeper into the forest, hoping to find a way out. But with every step, the realization hit me harder. No matter how fast I ran, the darkness was relentless. It would catch up to me. And just then, through the murky branches, something moved. I caught a glimpse of a figure darting away. Something small. My breath caught in my throat. The girl? The boy? Or something worse? I had to find answers before it was too late. I pressed on, pushing through the trees, my pulse racing with each crashing footfall. The underbrush tangled around my legs, but the thought of being caught kept me moving. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was right behind me, even though the forest had fallen eerily silent again. Suddenly, I noticed something glinting on the ground. I stopped, my flashlight sweeping over the area. It was a small, broken locket. I knelt down to pick it up, my fingers trembling as I brushed off the dirt. As I opened it, a picture of the girl flashed under the beam of my flashlight. The same girl who had looked at me with her sad, pleading eyes. My stomach clenched. Where was she? Why was she here? Was this her locket? Before I could make sense of anything, a rush of cold wind hit me like a wave, freezing me in place. The trees rustled, whispering secrets I couldn't comprehend. "Help!" a voice cried out, interrupting my thoughts. I shot to my feet, heart pounding. It came from further in the woods. "Stay back!" a firm voice rang out next, but it was cut short by a deep, dark laugh that sent shivers down my spine. I hesitated, torn between running towards the plea for help and retreating from that sinister laughter. "Help us!" the first voice cried again. This
time more desperate. It sounded like the boy. I couldn't leave him. I took a deep breath and pushed forward, following the sound. As I moved deeper into the trees, the laughter faded, giving way to other sounds. Heavy breathing and shuffling footsteps, like something was stalking me. My gut twisted, urging me to turn back, but I couldn't abandon the boy. When I stumbled into a small clearing, I saw them. Two shapes shifting wildly among the brush, their outlines blurred and hazy, as if they didn't belong in the real world. It sent my heart into overdrive. I could barely make out faces, but they weren't human. They seemed to flicker in and out of existence, like shadows refusing to settle. "Get away from him!" I shouted, shaking with fear. They turned, their eyes glowing like embers in the dark. The boy was huddled against a tree, his expression torn between fear and relief. "Stay back! Don't come closer!" he yelled. I didn't know what to do. The other two shapes crept forward, and instinct kicked in. I grabbed a branch from the ground and raised it like a weapon. "Leave him alone!" A chilling silence followed. The spirits paused, their energy fluctuating around them like smoke. "Why do you protect this one?" one of them hissed, its voice a ghostly whisper that seemed to resonate in my bones. "He is not yours." "Neither are you!" I shouted, my voice trembling, but the anger gave me strength. Whatever they were after the boy, and I wasn't going to let that happen. Just then, the shadows surged, rushing towards me. I swung the branch, but it passed through them like they were made of mist. Panic coursed through my veins. Had we already lost? That's when I heard the girl's laughter again, echoing through the trees, wrapping around me. It wasn't innocent anymore. It was mocking. I turned back to the boy, ready to plead with him to run. But in that moment, the darkness surged again, and we were enveloped. Something pulled me away, yanking me backwards into the murk. I felt weightless, as if the ground beneath me had vanished. In that moment of chaos, as the shadows closed in, I screamed, but my voice was lost in the darkness.
The coldness hit me like a shockwave. I was spinning through darkness, my heart racing as the world around me twisted and churned. I gasped, the air thick and suffocating. Then, abruptly, I landed on something solid. Dazed, I blinked and took a moment to gather myself. I was back in the forest, but it felt different this time. My flashlight flickered back to life, casting a beam that sliced through the thick fog. I stood up slowly, scanning my surroundings. The clearing was empty now. The boy, the shadows, gone. My chest tightened with fear. Had I imagined it all? But then I saw it. My feet were planted in the same spot where the locket had been.
Bent down to look at the ground, shaken. The locket was still there, half buried in the dirt. It was impossible that I had returned here. I picked it up again, hoping for some sort of connection back to the girl, the only clue I had. As I held it, a chill ran through me. It felt like a warning, one I didn't understand. Just then, a figure emerged in the distance, stepping into the light. My heart dropped. It was the boy, but he looked different, hollow and lost. "Why did you come back?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I had to save you," I said, panic flooding my words. "Where are those things? What are they?" He shook his head slowly. "It's not safe. We have to go." I grabbed his hand, urgency taking over. We started to move, but the trees around us whispered again, a chorus of menacing laughter echoing through the air. I glanced back, half expecting the shadows to return, but they remained hidden, lurking just beyond the reach of my flashlight. "Why does it feel wrong?" I asked, my voice trembling. "It watches, it wants." He looked haunted, as if he carried a burden I couldn't see. "They keep you close to make you forget." "Forget what?" But before he could answer, the fog thickened, swallowing us in a shroud of gray. The boy's hand slipped from mine, and I reached out, panic bubbling within me. "No, don't leave me!" Suddenly, a piercing scream cut through the haze. It wasn't just any scream. It was the girl's voice, cracking and filled with terror. "No!" I shouted, breaking into a sprint toward the sound. The boy shouted after me, but I could barely hear him over the thudding of my heart. I pushed through the fog, feeling the trees scratching at my arms as I ran, desperate to find her. The scream echoed again, and I felt a surge of determination. I had to find her. I couldn't let whatever was holding her take her away. Then the fog parted, revealing a gnarled tree. At its base lay a pile of dirt, freshly turned. My stomach sank. I rushed over and dropped to my knees, digging into the earth, my hands shaking. That was when I saw it. A small, tattered doll, half buried, its button eyes staring blankly toward the sky. A dread settled over me, heavier than before. I realized then that whatever was in the forest was not just after the boy. It wanted the girl, too. Standing back, I took a deep breath and tried to make sense of all this. That's when I heard it, a low, guttural growl rising from the darkness, wrapping around me like a noose. I turned, heart pounding, ready for whatever came next. I felt the growl resonate deep inside me, a rumble that made my skin prickle. The air around me shifted, thickening with something dark and heavy. I raised my flashlight, scanning the tree line, but all I could see were shadows moving just beyond my reach. Panic surged through me. I backed away from the freshly turned dirt, the doll still lying there like a curse. "What do you want?" I shouted, my voice cracking in the stillness. I didn't expect an answer, but the growl seemed to deepen, almost as if it were taunting me. Then, from the shadows, a figure began to take shape. I squinted, trying to make it out. It emerged slowly, a darkness that blurred the edges, taking on a chimerical form. I could just make out features, a face twisted in a grotesque smirk, eyes glimmering with malice. "Leave her alone!" I cried out instinctively. The growl morphed into a laugh, low and echoing. It sent chills down my spine. Was this thing connected to the girl? Was it trying to take her, or was it already too late? Without thinking, I turned to run, muscles screaming as I sprinted back into the fog, desperate to escape the nightmarish presence. My feet found the moist earth with urgency, dodging the roots and branches that clawed out at me. I could hear the undercurrent of the creature's footsteps behind me, always just out of sight. "Wait!" The boy's voice broke through the veil of noise and fear. I skidded to a stop, spinning back to him. He was not far off, but he still looked haunted, his eyes wide. "You can't run. It feeds on fear." "What do you mean?" I was breathless, every instinct telling me to keep moving. "The more you run, the stronger it gets," he explained, his voice shaking. "You need to face it." I glanced back into the fog, uncertainty blurring my resolve. The creature was still lurking out there, waiting for my panic to guide it closer. What if I can't? "Trust me." He stepped forward, his expression earnest. "The locket, it's a key. It ties you to her. You have to hold on to it." With shaking hands, I clutched the locket tight and stepped toward him. The air grew colder, and the growling intensified, almost as if the creature resented my defiance. I looked at the boy, searching for reassurance. "Together," he said, reaching for my hand. "We'll do it together." Before I could respond, I felt something shift in the air. The fog swirled violently, and I could hear the girl's voice again, faint but clear. "Please, help me." It jolted me forward, and I grabbed the boy's hand, grounding myself. We held on to each other, standing against whatever darkness threatened to consume us. The fog parted once more, revealing the gnarled tree again, and I could see something shifting inside the shadows. The growl burst forth, now clear and furious. I swallowed hard as the creature slinked forward, the smirk still etched across its face. It was too close, and that's when I saw it. A flicker of movement at the base of the tree. It wasn't just the doll. It was the girl, her tiny hands digging at the ground, eyes wide with fright. She looked up at us, and I knew we had to act fast. "Now!" I shouted, my heart drumming. But as we prepared to charge forward, the ground underneath us began to tremble. Something ancient and powerful was stirring, and I realized that our fight was just beginning. I braced myself as the ground shook, my heart racing. "What's happening?" I gasped, struggling to keep my balance. The boy squeezed my hand tighter, his face etched with determination. "The barrier is weakening," he shouted over the noise. "We have to reach her before it pulls her under." I didn't fully understand what he meant, but I could see the girl's face turning pale. She was losing the fight against whatever was dragging her down. I didn't want to think about what would happen if we didn't act soon. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, pulling the boy along with me. "We can't let it take her," I urged, trying to drown out the growls that echoed around us. The creature loomed closer, eyes gleaming with hunger. The girl's fingers continued to claw at the earth, as if trying to break free from some unseen chains. "Help me!" she cried out, fear lacing her tone. My chest tightened. It felt like a weight pressing down on me, making it harder to breathe. With a nod from the boy, we launched ourselves toward her. "Hold on!" I shouted, reaching for her. The shadows loosened their grasp just long enough for me to seize the girl's tiny hand. But as soon as I touched her, the growl erupted, raw and wild. The creature surged forward, a dark wave crashing against us. I could feel its rage, like a storm brewing. The boy let go of my hand, pushing against the creature, trying to fend it off. "Keep holding her," he yelled, his voice strained. "We have to give her strength." Trembling, I tightened my grip on the girl, feeling her small fingers wrap around the locket. In that moment, I realized it pulsed with energy, a rhythm synchronizing with the chaos surrounding us. "What do I do?" I shouted, desperation flooding my voice. "Focus on her. The locket connects you," he said, stepping closer to block the creature's advance. Trying to steady my thoughts, I looked into the girl's terrified eyes. "You're not alone. We're here with you," I called out, hoping my voice could penetrate the darkness. The growl grew louder, reverberating in my chest, but I refused to look away. "I'm scared," she sobbed, pulling against my grip. "I know," I said softly, forcing the words over the noise. "But you're stronger than this. We can help you. Just keep holding on." As I spoke, a strange warmth radiated from the locket, flooding the air like sunlight piercing through clouds. I could feel a pulse grow stronger with every heartbeat, and the fog began to pull back. The creature shrieked, twisting and recoiling as if it were burning. "Now!" the boy shouted, and I clutched the locket tighter. In that instant, I understood the connection we all shared. It wasn't just a locket. It was a binding thread to the girl's spirit. I spoke the words that felt like they were rising from my very core. "You're not alone. We're all with you." Suddenly, the shadows around us flickered like candlelight. The growl turned into a howl of pain, and I felt the pressure of the darkness loosening. The girl's eyes lit up with hope as she nodded. "I can feel it." The waves of energy crashed against the back of my mind, but I stood firm. The creature writhed, and I found myself shouting, "We banish you!" Then everything exploded in a blinding light. I lost sight of everything around me, but the girl's grip was steady, steadying me too. As the light dimmed and the growl faded, a heavy silence blanketed us. I blinked against the residual glare. When I could see again, the scene had shifted completely. The fog was gone, and in its place stood the old tree, but it was sunlit now, roots firmly planted in sun-kissed soil. I looked down at the girl, and my breath hitched. She wasn't trembling anymore. She looked alive, free. But there, looming just beyond the light, I saw the darkness gather once more. It wasn't gone, just waiting. "Stay close," I said, heart hammering again. "This isn't over." I could feel the remaining tendrils of fear creeping back, curling around my spine like cold fingers. The sunlit clearing felt too calm, almost mocking after the chaos we had just survived. I exchanged worried glances with the boy and the girl as we stood huddled together, surrounded by the gnarled branches of the ancient tree. "Now what?" the boy asked, his voice lower but still tense. I scanned our surroundings, searching for any signs of movement. The clearing was mostly barren, but I spotted patches of wildflowers, their colors vibrant against the green grass. It seemed peaceful, but that only heightened my anxiety. I glanced toward the darkness lurking just beyond the glowing edge of our newfound light. It was like a wall of ink, ready to swallow us whole again. The girl, still clutching the locket, took a shaky breath. "Is it gone? Did we really banish it?" I thought we did, the weight of uncertainty hanging heavy on my tongue. But it feels like it's just waiting. The boy nodded. "That's exactly it. We didn't finish it." He took a step forward, glancing back at the darkness, as if daring it to make a move. "What do we do now?" I asked, feeling my pulse quicken. "What if it comes back?" Before anyone could respond, a sharp rustle cut through the silence. All three of us spun around, eyes wide. The sound repeated, louder this time. My heart raced. "Stay behind me," the boy said, shifting into a protective stance. I stepped beside him instinctively, drawing strength from his presence. The rustling grew sharper, as if something heavy was pushing through the underbrush. My mind raced with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. "What if it's a person?" the girl whispered, panic creeping into her voice. "That's not a good thing either way," I admitted, trying to suppress my own fear. The presence of the locket in my hand was a small comfort,
a reminder of the power we had just found. And then I saw it. Emerging from the shadows, a figure stumbled into view. My breath caught in my throat. It was like staring at a long-lost memory, a familiar face twisted and distorted. "John?" I breathed, recognizing my old friend who had vanished years ago during a camping trip we had all taken together. "Help me," he rasped, his voice barely more than a whisper. His eyes were sunken, wild with dread. "It's coming. You don't understand." Before I could respond, I felt an icy wind whip around us. The creature's growl rose to a bone-chilling crescendo, echoing off the tree's twisted bark. "No!" I shouted, my voice firm with disbelief. "This isn't real. You're not real." Suddenly, John's face morphed, shifting into something grotesque, skin stretching and twisting, revealing glistening fangs. Horror coursed through me. The boy shouted, "Back!" as he pushed me and the girl behind him, ready to defend against whatever was happening. In that moment, I understood. This wasn't just a fight against a creature. This was about the darkness that crept into every part of our lives, the fears that held us captive. That's when I saw it. The shadows weren't just around us, they were within us. As the growling of the creature crescendoed, something flickered in the dark. The locket began to glow, casting a warm light against the oncoming chaos. "Focus!" I screamed, knowing we had the strength to face whatever was coming, even if I wasn't sure how. But the moment I reached for the light, all went dark. I came to, gasping for breath as I lay sprawled on the moist forest floor. The clearing I had fought for was gone, replaced by a thick darkness that closed in around me like a heavy blanket. Panic surged anew, my heart pounding in my ears. I struggled to sit up, confusion coursing through my veins. The girl, the boy, they weren't here anymore. Had I lost them too? The shadows shifted and writhed, taunting me as I pushed myself upright. I wiped the dirt from my hands and looked around, desperate for some sign of the others. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing into the void. Silence responded, but deep in my gut I could feel the malevolence lurking close by, waiting for the moment I let my guard down. A familiar laughter broke through the gloom, and I felt my skin prickle. It was childlike, innocent, but it only filled me with dread.
Echoing giggles wrapped around me, teasing and pulling at my fraying nerves. I turned sharply, searching frantically for the sound's source. "Show yourself!" I shouted. Nothing answered except the cold wind that whispered through the trees. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw a flicker, a small figure darting just beyond the reach of my flashlight. My heart raced. Was it the girl? Or was it yet another trick of the darkness? I had to find out. I had to know. I took a cautious step toward where the figure had disappeared, straining my ears to catch any hint of laughter or cries. The air felt charged, and the hostile energy made my stomach churn. Every instinct urged me to run, but I couldn't. I had to confront this. The answers were tantalizingly close. As I moved deeper into the shadows, I stumbled upon another clearing, the ground littered with old toys. I recognized some of them, the same ones from before. The metal car, the faded doll. They glinted in the beam of my flashlight, haunting reminders of all I had encountered. But there was something else, too. A circle, perfectly formed in the center. Heart pounding, I stepped inside the circle. The shadows shifted, and a chill washed over me. Laughter erupted from all sides, a cacophony of voices, both young and old. I felt dizzy, memories flooding my mind. Laughter from happy children and dark whispers that clawed at my sanity. Suddenly, the darkness thickened, and a low growl echoed off the trees, making my blood run cold. It was close, too close. I felt the presence stalk towards me, the weight of it chilling my skin.
The locket pulsed in my pocket, warming against my thigh as if it was alive. Whatever had kept the shadows at bay, it was fading. "Help us!" the voices cried out, calling to me from the depths of the darkness, twisting my heart. I glanced back toward the direction I had come, contemplating escape, but fear made my legs hesitate. I couldn't abandon them. I couldn't abandon myself. "Together!" I shouted, feeling a surge of desperation and defiance. Drawing the locket from my pocket, I held it high, its glow illuminating the area around me, pushing back the encroaching shadows just enough to see a glimpse of fear in their forms. And then, just like that, the childlike laughter transformed, taking on a haunting tone that dulled my resolve. "Join us," the voice whispered, soft but dripping with an unworldly malice. In that moment, everything erupted into chaos. The figures of children, both joyful and filled with despair, twirled around me, a whirlwind of laughter and cries. The darkness thrashed, shifting and twisting, trying to swallow me whole. Yet, holding the locket against my heart, I pressed forward through the storm. "Please," I yelled into the fray, "we have to break free." Just as the darkness closed in, I felt the warmth from the locket reach its peak. The air around me vibrated with
energy, and I had a vision, lost, alone, waiting. I understood then that they needed release, the tie that bound them to this realm. "Let go!" I screamed. "You are not trapped!" The shadows sputtered around me as if unsure of what to do. I fumbled with the locket, pulling at the energy within, ready to cast it against the darkness. The laughter faded, replaced with an agony that echoed in my bones. The shadows lingered, restless but confused. With one last desperate heave, I hurled the locket into the heart of the swirling black mass. "You are free!" I shouted, my voice rasping and raw. There was a blinding flash, and for a heartbeat, silence enveloped me. The forest around transformed. Soft sunlight filtered through the trees, illuminating the clearing filled with scattered toys. It felt serene but heavy. I blinked, unsure of what I'd just invoked. The laughter was gone. The shadows dissipated slowly, leaving no trace of their presence behind. Had I actually released them? I stood in bewilderment as shadows of doubt crept back into my mind. Had I banished the darkness, or simply unwittingly released it into the world? All that remained was an empty, echoing laughter, fading whispers that danced among the leaves. I took a cautious step back, uncertainty brimming in my chest. I glanced back to spot a shadowy form, a fleeting instant of a girl appearing and disappearing into the trees. I staggered back, breathless. I realized then that an answer eluded me, a final piece dispersed among the woods. I turned back toward the path leading out, knowing that whether they had been freed or not, everything had changed. The woods would forever hold their secrets, and mine. As I stumbled away, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was not the end, merely a pause in an unseen dance of shadows. The memories lingered, and the questions remained, as unanswered as the laughter trailing off into the depths of the trees.